Get a couple of verb charts ready to go. There we go. Okay, I think we're going to officially get started. So thank you guys so much, those of you who are here live. As of right now, looking in the comments, it's looking like we're going to start with verb charts. So we're going to do a couple of different practice ones, talk strategies, conjugations, that sort of thing. If you guys have any other questions or topics that you want to see, we can certainly do that too. But we're going to start out here with the sort of basic of the basics. So we'll start with the first conjugation verb. Okay. When you're doing a verb synopsis, there's always going to be the full dictionary form. You're going to have all the different principal parts, and then there's going to be some form that is requested. So it could be first person singular, first person plural, third person singular, whatever the case may be. So what that means is you're going to take all these first 6 and you're going to put them into that form, right? And make sure you know the code. First plural means we, okay? Second singular is you, third plural is they. Make sure that you are comfortable with all of these forms. Hey, I think that's Rowan. So first question we ask ourselves when we're doing these verb charts, what conjugation am I looking at, right? That's going to dictate everything. So you can make a little note of it. You can, I mean, obviously on an online exam, it's a little bit more difficult, but make sure that that's the first thing that comes into mind. So this is first conjugation verb. When I think first conjugation, I'm thinking easy. I'm thinking that long A, right, in the stem, it's going to be there in all the different forms. When I get to future, I'm thinking Bobby Boo, right, because it's first conjugation. So when we start to build our verb forms out, okay, let me make sure you guys can see this. Ooh, we got to make that bigger. Let's go 18. There we go. That's better. 18. Okay. It's up to you how you guys want to do it. You can just throw verb forms into the chat. I'm happy to just kind of drive the ship if you want to just be passively listening. So make sure, right, you're reading it very, very carefully. First person plural, right? So I always do my verb charts in the exact same way because I'm a creature of habit. So I go present active, laudamus, right? Nothing fancy there, just my stem and my ending. And then I go to the passive side, right? Because all I'm doing is changing mus to mer, just like Rowan said, right? So I like to kind of do the tenses individually, do present, active, and passive. Then when I get to imperfect, imperfect's pretty regular. It's just ba for pretty much every verb, right? So you're going to take your stem lauda, and then you're going to have bamus and lauda bamur. And then future is the one where the conjugation is crucial. So because it is a first conjugation verb, we're going to follow that sort of old pattern that I know you guys remember really well, which is lauda bimos and lauda bimor. Okay? Those are the first 6, what we call the indicatives. Okay? When you get to the imperatives, you can ignore this first plural thing because imperatives only come in 2 forms for our purposes. They come in the you form, the second person singular. They come in the y'all form. So to make these commands, right, first one, the singular one, you basically just chop off the RE, right, and you get lauda, right? And to make it plural, fantastic, we add the TE, lauda and laudate. Now, this is the first plural pattern, right? If I were to change this to, let's say, second plural, why that didn't, I changed my margins. If I change this to second plural, what's the only thing that changes? I mean, I've done a lot of good work here. Got my ba, got my bobby boo, right? What's going to change if I make all of these forms second plural instead of first plural? What would I need to change about all these verb forms? Laudamus. What am I going to change the mus to? Yeah, it's going to be tis, right? So all these musses are going to become tis. What about the passives? What is the passive version of tis? Yeah, it's mini. And that's just got to be up in your noggin, right? You got to know your passive endings. These guys are not going to change, right? They're pretty static, okay? So really, when you're looking at those first 6 verb boxes, that's what we're dealing with. I'm gonna go with Rowan on this one. He's looking at dokeo. Dokeo means to teach, right? So let's do the ever-present third singular for these guys. I'm gonna change my sizes here. So the first thing we always think about, right? Even before we start filling in endings or filling in forms, what do I want to be thinking about? What needs to come to my mind? Conjugation. But yeah, second conjugation, right? It has the long ERE. It's got the E and the O. Second conjugation. Second conjugation and first conjugation are really kind of the same, except A's versus E's. So the pattern is basically going to be the same. So you're going to have doket. You're going to have doketor. That long mark appears just because of pronunciation. So don't fixate too much on the long marks. Imperfect, dokebat versus dokebator. Again, another long mark for pronunciation. And future, since it's second conjugation, dokebit, dokebitur. The imperatives, remember, don't worry about third person singular. Just they all basically behave the same way. So we have doke and dokete. I like to put the exclamation points on there. Don't feel like you have to. On the exam, it's going to be, it'll be fine either way. What if I change this to third plural? Let's say, for practice's sake. What if I change this to third plural? Basically, my T's are going to change to NT. So we get dokent, dokentur, dokebant, dokebantur. We lose some of those extra long marks too. But what's going to change here? This one's got a little bit more change in. When this one becomes third plural, when bit, B-I-T, becomes third plural, what happens? It's not bint. What would it be? Yeah, dokebunt, right? So watch out there. Dokebunt and dokebuntur. These guys, leave them alone. They stay exactly the way they are. Okay? So there's second conjugation, and again, just as easily, I could change all these S's, NTs to S and ris. I could change it to T and tour. I could change it to mus and mur. As long as you know your endings, okay? You just switch them out. Let's go Kano. To sing. Let's go, I don't know, we'll start with let's start with third singular, and then I might mix it up on you. Right. Before you start giving me stems and endings, what do we need to think about with this verb? It is third conjugation, right? Third conjugation means, oh, Zubair, you got conjugation and conjunction. You got your wires crossed. No Bobby Boo, and the pattern is going to be kind of unique. So when it comes to the present, that E is not going to be an E. What's going to happen to that E in the stem? When I say he sings or she sings, it's not Connet. Connet. It's going to be a long E eventually, but not yet. It's, you're very close there, Rowan. It's O is it. O is it. Imus it is unt. That's our pattern. It's kind of like a ro erisarit, erimus eritis erunt, or bo bis bit, bimus bitis bunt. It's a pattern that we use a lot. So conit, the passive would be conitor. So you could say like it is sung, if you're talking about a song, right? The song is sung by so-and-so. Imperfect. What's this one going to look like? Canebat. And canebatur. So you're close there, Max. Just remember, it goes back to being an E. Really, it's only weird in the present. The present is where the weird stuff happens. And then future is where we get our E. Conet and conator. So we have an I in the present. We have an E in the future. My two imperatives, because it's third conjugation, bells should be going off in my head because this is where the weird stuff's going to happen. My singular imperative is pretty normal. My plural, right? Conne versus conita. So there's another situation there where the little E in connere is going to do something funky. You will not lose points. If you have the ability to put long marks, please do. Salve discipule. What's up, Giancarlo? So try if you can. If you're not sure, just leave it off. I always accept the non-long marked version of an answer. I always plug that in as an option for formative. So are all the passive endings you are? No, not enough of them, right? So I wouldn't even think that in my brain, Rose. I would just think, right, you have O, S, T, mus, tis, int, right? O or M, I should say. This becomes my own sanity. This becomes ris. T becomes ter. Mus becomes mer. Tis becomes mini. And nt becomes enter. So I don't know. I mean, 3 of the 6 of them end in UR. That to me, 3 out of 6 doesn't make a pattern. That just kind of feels like you're asking for it. So I kind of think you just have to bite the bullet and learn the active endings, learn the passive endings. I don't want you to get yourself into trouble thinking it's UR and half the time it won't be. I got you. And that it's a good instinct, right? You want to make patterns of things. You want to try to come up with easier ways to remember this stuff. and then sometimes it'll burn you. So I just want you to be careful on that. I want to go back to kano here. And in the spirit of changing these, let's make this one plural. What's going to happen if I change all of these forms to the plural now instead of third person singular? So obviously my T's are going to become NT's. Con-knit, what's the plural version? Yeah, we're going to change a little bit more here because it's not going to be con-nint. It's going to be con-nunt, right? So we have con-nunt and con-untur. And then the rest of them, you're just changing the T to NT. Con-ne-bant to con-ne-bantur. Con-nent to con-entur. It looks weird with con-nunt. It's like bunt. It's like a runt. You do see it in other places. All right, let's get to the good ones. Let's do some third IO. So how about... Just jocking my brain for exciting third IO verbs. We'll do a common one. Acipio, acipere, acapi, acaptus. And let's start with second plural. So this verb is third IO. Third and third IO, the patterns are going to be really similar as long as every form has an I. So accipitus and accipimini, we got I's. We're good to go. Imperfect, we have this E, but we're also going to have this I, right? And it takes a little getting used to get used to seeing the I and the E, but they do hang out quite a bit, right? Accipie batis and accipie bomini. And then for future, accipie and accipie mini. All good, Sloan. I know what you meant. One of the things to remember too, if you're going from imperfect to future, you're doing one of two things, right? You're either, for first and second conjugation up here, you're changing the BA to Bobby Boo. That's one way to go from imperfect to future. For third and third IO and fourth, essentially all you're doing is just getting rid of the BA and leaving everything else the same. Right? Conne-bant becomes conent. Accipiebatis just becomes accipietis. Basically just get rid of the BA. It's the same vowel pattern. It's just you don't have the BA anymore. You just have the vowels IE. This language learning thing, filling out these charts and stuff, it's all a personal thing. You got to kind of, figure out what strategies work for you. But let's get the two imperatives in there, and we'll do one more verb, and then we'll put this stuff into action. Accipe, right? So we chop off the, oops, that's short E. Accipe. So we just chop off the RE here. So we got accipe. What about plural? Accipite. Awesome, 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 awesome. Accipite. So we still are in that kind of third conjugation short E world here, which is why we have the ITE. I know third IO is one that people were concerned about, so let's manipulate this one a little bit. Let's go first plural. If we go first plural, not a whole lot of work we need to do. Akipetis becomes akipimus. Akipimini becomes akipimur, right? So we're just changing our tis to mus and mini to mur, right? So we're just manipulating our endings here, right? All the vowels and stuff stay the same, and these guys we don't mess with. We leave them alone. They're good to go. I'm going to throw the tricky one at you, and that's third plural. Something's going to happen in the present here. Yeah. We're going to have akip-i unt. We're going to have our unt, our third conjugation, but we're going to put an I in front of it as well. Akip-i-unt and akip-i-untur. And then these guys are easy. Akipie bont, akipie bontur, akipi ents, and akipi entur. And again, get used to seeing that IE together, or in the present IU, right? This, multiple vowel situation thing is it's pretty common in Latin. And they pronounce every one. They don't skip vowels. So it's akipient or akipiunt. Oh, what's up, Augie? Thanks for popping in. And fourth conjugation is such a small conjugation. I always go to the same verbs. Try to come up with exciting ones, but let's go category fourth conjugation verbs. Second singular is tricky, and it's so tricky that I don't think I'm going to give it to you on the test. And since I know the guy who wrote the test, aperio is a good one. Let's go with aperio. Aperire, aperui, apertus. To open. Can you put in a word with the test writer? I mean, he's kind of a recluse. He's kind of a weirdo, but I'll see what I can do. Let's do third singular for this one. So we have a fourth conjugation verb, fourth and third IO, basically the same pattern, almost indistinguishable. Aperit. Yep. You haven't saved this file. No, I don't want to save it. So remember, I like to go active, passive, active, passive. So we have aperit and aperitur. We get a long mark. That's okay. It's a pronunciation long mark. Imperfect. I'm seeing them come in. So Zubair, you're close there. You just don't want to add any extra things when you go active to passive. You want to keep them pretty much the same. So aperie bat, aperie batur. Oops. And then future, aperiet and aperietur. So we have our eyes, in the present, and then we get our IE in the imperfect and future. Aperi, excellent, open. Aperi and aperita. And as always, this is like a 100% practicable. You can do as many of these as you want. If you're looking for some way to test yourself or to correct yourself, because the Magistral situation, it's not perfect. But if you are, if you're familiar with a Whitaker's words kind of a situation, right? And I'm going to change my, let's see if this will work. Where's my window cap? Change this to, there we go. If you're looking for a way to test yourself, right? You've done your verb chart, you've done your boxes, right? And you want to see if you're right. So let's say you put in apperit, right? It's kind of coded, but if you look up here, what you're looking for here is present active. Ind just means indicative, so that's normal. That 3S means third person singular. So that's how you can, that's one way that you can check. Also, let's say you made a mistake. You were doing third plural, and you put aperint instead of aperiunt. It's going to say, in most cases, it's going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. This is a completely different verb in a weird form. It's basically going to tell you you're not quite there, right? Or let's say you put aperibat instead of aperiebat. It's telling you you're way off the mark here. Sometimes you'll find like these random forms, but or let's say you made a real bad move and you try to do Bobby Boo. It's just gonna look at you like you're crazy, right? The other website that you can use, I'm a big fan of Wiktionary, right? So you can find aperio in Latin. You can go to its lovely page here, and you're gonna get lots of goodies that you can use to test yourself, right? So this is a good way for you to check your work, if that's one route you're going. Let me switch back here to our Word doc. Other verby questions. That was about a half hour of good, solid verby practice. So I think that was time well spent. I did come up with a couple of sentences that we can do practicing from active to passive. Max, we looked over these sentences in your class. I saved them for everybody else. So if we do get a chance to go over these, I know you will be the expert on these. But Sloan, absolutely, I can go back up. So we have the, oops, that's all right. We have the translation. Okay, it's a story. It's basically 5 sentences. You put it all together, it's a paragraph. The prep phrases are, and you're just translating Latin to English there. Prep phrases, you've got some English to Latin, some Latin to English. It's a little bit of a mix. Noun adjective pairs, you're going to have 4 pairs, essentially. So a noun and an adjective, 1 point for each. Verb charts, obviously we just talked about, and then active to passive sentences, where we're twisting them around. The other thing too, make sure you don't, we can definitely do some prep phrases. Don't sleep on the Google Classroom. So if you go in the classwork tab, let me quick draw on here. Oops, Chrome, there we go. In the Google Classroom, particularly, right, if you're looking for verby stuff, you've got the slides from the passive system. Down at the bottom, the last few slides here, right? We got examples of each conjugation, so you can use these as well to kind of to check yourself. Jenny asked an excellent question. Does the translation of the story have to be perfect, or is there wiggle room? There is, of course, wiggle room, and I will do everything in my power to give you any and all partial credit that I think that you have earned. With that said, it needs to be a good, solid attempt at a translation. And what I mean by that, and former students have heard me say this many times, so pardon the repetition, but perfect, really, it needs to be a good, solid effort. Obviously, if you're going to get full credit, your translation should match up with the Latin sentence. The tenses should be correct, the subject, the direct object, the ablative agent, all of those things should be in the right spot. If it's 4 points, you might get a 3.5 if something is out of place or something like that. Jenny's first year Latin is a good spot. However, let me go back to what I was saying before. I am not a fan of what I call word salad, right? And what I mean by that, we'll go down to these little practice sentences. If you look at these words and you don't think about the grammar and you just simply say to me, this means brother, this means sister, this means protect, and you say the brother and sister protect, I'm really tempted to give you 0 points on that. Because that really isn't an effort to translate a sentence. That is you essentially spitting vocabulary at me. You're pretending to be a dictionary. That's not what I'm looking for. I would rather you go out swinging and trying to figure out what case this is and try to put it in the right spot than just get, and this is such a short sentence, it's hard to get my point across here. But if you have a longer sentence and it has multiple parts, I'd rather you give me one good part than the entire thing where you've just taken all the vocabulary and put it in a bowl and shook it out and we see what happens, right? That always kind of irks me a little bit. So please at least give an effort. And I will give you the show your work button. I'll give you the show your work option so that even if you're not quite sure, you can give me something so I can get in your brain a little bit and try to figure out what it is that you were going for. There was a request for some prepositional phrases, so we can definitely we can do a couple of those. I mean, really what it comes down to with prepositional phrases, right? You need to, if you are rocking and rolling, Rowan, the way you should be, yes, I don't think time will be a factor. But if you're spending 15 minutes on a verb chart, you're in trouble. So you want to make sure that you get the easy points and you get them quick. I think you should have about 30 minutes or so. I'll say 30 to 40 minutes to do the translation and the sentences. That's if you take care of business on the other stuff. So let's start with prep phrases. Know your vocab. Know your prepositions, because I'm not giving you any prepositions and the case, right? It's not just knowing, there'll be 5 prepositional phrases. So you need to know per plus accusative equals through, or intra plus accusative means within, or de plus the ablative means down from or about, depending on the situation. That's what you need to bring to the table. If you're going English to Latin, right? if you're doing English to Latin, you need to decline the noun and adjective. What I mean by that is do not give me, like some of you did on the quizzes today, don't give me, sorry for the caps, don't give me per nox. Per nox means nothing, right? A Roman would understand what you're saying, but it would be like you're speaking another language. Per nox means nothing. Per goes with the accusative, so per nox is nothing. Instead, what do I need to change nox to? What would the accusative of nox be? It's per noctem. Right? That is what Latin looks like. If there's an adjective, longam, that's got to be accusative as well. Oops, I keep doing that. De wir? If I wrote a book about a man, it's like saying me want. I like that. It's a good comparison. But it's not going to be de wir. What's it going to be? If the preposition, and Sloan, the preposition is not a case. The preposition goes with a particular case. So per is always followed by the accusative case. The noun that you're going through the whatever, that word is going to be accusative. Absolutely. It's going to be de wiro, right? About the man, right? Something like that. So that's why we call them prep phrases, because they're groups of words that work together, right? Some prepositions can go with accusative or ablative, depending on the situation. So, I'm trying to think of a good one. Ambulo. Oops. God, I keep doing that. I have two different keystrokes for different computers on how to do long marks. So on my Mac, it's one keystroke. On my Windows, on my PC, it's another one. So I always get them. My brain gets wired. Those are two different sentences, right? Those two sentences mean something very different. What does the first one mean? Ambulo in urbem versus the second one, ambulo in urba. Yeah. I walk into the city versus I walk in the city. Right? So in is a preposition that if there is motion, if you're walking into something, that preposition goes with the accusative case. And if there is no motion into a place, if you're just stationary, and walking is moving, but as long as you're staying in the city, in urba, you would use the ablative case. Sub works the same way, okay? If you travel, travel subterram, right? You're traveling under the earth. You're starting up here and then you're going underground. Versus the ship is submari. The ship is under the water, right? It's just kind of sitting under the water, like a submarine, like a submarine. So those prepositions that can go either way, it depends. You need the whole sentence. Without any context, it's hard to tell which one it should be. If you're going Latin to English, right? Or both, I should say either direction. Beware of the genitive case. So if you have a situation like this, prope, I always seem to use prope, but I love prope. Prope templum dei, where you have your sort of standard prep phrase, and then there's a genitive word hanging out. Just be careful, singular or plural. Near the temple of the god, right? Or near the god's temple. So you can have a genitive join the party, and that genitive can either go at the end, but more commonly, particularly in authentic Latin text, that genitive is actually going to sneak its way in the middle, right? It kind of tucks itself in. Means exactly the same thing. I'll write same as above. Yeah, either one is correct. So if I ask you to go English to Latin and there's a genitive involved, you can put it anywhere. You can put it at the end, you can put it in between. And when you translate it, it translates exactly the same way. It's just a preference. So another example would be, cum sorora marci, or cum marci sorora. What do those two mean? And then I see your question about the cum sorora marci or cum marci sorora. Yeah, with Marcus's sister, or with the sister of Marcus. Either one. Does ablative agent apply in prep phrases? Ablative agent is a prep phrase, right? So ablative agent is a or ab plus person doing the action. Passive. That's the idea of an ablative agent. So when you have a passive sentence and you're saying the liber legebatur, the book was being read, Abulia? Aulia? Aulia. I would say Aulia. So this is your ablative agent. The book was being read by Julia. I mean, this is the difficulty. Prepositional phrases, it's not like there's some sliding scale of difficulty. A prep phrase is always a preposition, a noun, maybe an adjective, or maybe a genitive. They don't get much bigger or more complicated than this. Oh. I mean, prepositional phrases that's all they are. Near the lost temple, behind the red door, inside the small school, towards the house of my friend. They don't really get much more complicated than that. That's kind of all they are. So when you're reading Latin, specifically when you're reading long passages of Latin, a prep phrase is like a breath of fresh air. It's like a moment to pause. You're like, okay, here's a little chunk of information I can deal with. Any other prep phrase type questions? I mean, at the end of the day, if I give you, let's say I give you, within the walls of the city, and I ask you to translate that. Yeah, Giancarlo, I can't remember if it was your class. I mean, I used to talk about noise, right? Sentences are always full of noise. And prep phrases, that's all they are. They're just a little extra noise. So you bracket them off or you put them in parentheses, just kind of get out of my way so I can deal with the rest of it. If I ask you to translate this prepositional phrase, I'm not going to tell you the word within. I'm not giving you any prepositions. Those I expect you to come with. But I will give you wall. And I might even be nice and give you city. You still have to do the rest. Within the walls of the city. Within the walls of the city. Now we're getting to can we do charts? Which is always. So within is intra. It takes the accusative case. So walls are the accusative. Within the walls. And it needs to be accusative plural. Intramurum would be within the wall, and that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Intramuros, then you have your of the city, then you have your genitive. So intramuros urbis or intra urbis muros. Wherever you put it, as long as it's in the genitive case, life is good. Okay. And for those of you who are planning to go to college one day, maybe you'll play what are called intramural sports. That's where you play against teams within your school. Cicero just put muros. Yeah, I mean, and honestly, the walls of a city are, it's pretty much understood. There's also the word moinia, which is another word for city walls, so a couple different ways. Will the exam have the sentences separate or counted for all 20 points? The way it works on the exam is there will be 5 sentences, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. And each one will have its own separate box on formative. So they'll be graded separately. So the amount of credit you get for number 1 it can be different from the amount of credit that you get for number 2. I think that's what you're asking, Sloan. No, I mean, on a normal exam, if we were in school and it were on paper, yes, it would be one big paragraph. For my own sanity, it just makes it easier to break it up. Can we do some active to passive? Absolutely. We got a little time. I told my 10th graders I'd be available with them on Discord, but I can keep an eye on. And Rowan, I'm assuming, because I haven't really been looking at Discord, you've been asking your questions in here, so I don't think I've missed anything from you. Where did I put those sentences? Here we go. So again, section 12, my apologies. You've seen these before. But this is the level of sentence we're talking about when I ask you to switch them from active to passive. Right? We're not going crazy here. So the first thing we do is we translate the original sentence. So we'll call this number 1, call this number 2, call this number 3. So we translate the original. Yep. The brother, he's the nominative, so he's the subject. Be careful on tense. That's the kind of thing that would cost you a little half point, quarter point, something like that. The brother was protected, or was being protected, but I do want to hear that was in there because it's BA. Was being protected a sorore, by his sister. So that's the original. The brother was being protected by his sister. So that's our starting point, right? Next step in the process, twist it around to be the other one. The sister protected or was protecting her brother. Then we have to build that new sentence. So now we have a new subject, sister, right? So sorore is not going to be ablative anymore because it's not agent. She's the subject. Soror is the nominative. Fratrem, because he's now the direct object. Protegebat, right? My verb is third person singular, not because it used to be third person singular. It's third person singular because the sister is the subject. So because this is third person singular, this is third person singular, but it's active now. So please don't do the thing where you just change that tour back to a T. In this situation, that is the correct verb form, but that's not always going to be the case. The sister was protecting her brother. Questions on that one? Makes sense? Uh-oh, running low on water. All right. How about number 2? Discipuli magistrum audiens. First thing we do, translate the original. Oh, can't be yawning. No rest for the weary. Again, be careful. Little things. It's not audiunt, it's audient. So think about what that E means. The students, not present, will listen. The students will listen to their teacher. Flippy it around. The teacher will be listened to. It's not great English, but that's the idea. This teacher will be listened to, or heard, you could say, by the students. So that's what we're aiming for. Now the teacher is the subject. The students, by the students, is going to be my ablative. So teacher in the nominative, I know that many of you, in fact, I think all of you 6 a year had magistri. Each one of you had a magistra. But for the masculine, magister. So magister, absolutely. Rowan, I need an active verb or a passive verb? If the teacher will be listened to, will be heard. Audiator, right? It needs to be passive. Oh, Zubair, you're so close. You're so close. Not discipulos, because it's ablative. Discipulis, right? There's our finished product. Now watch what happened. Our original verb was they, right? Because the students will listen to the teacher, right? They will listen. So we had an NT. But in my new version, he is the subject. So my verb is now third person singular. So it's not just change NT to entur, right? You really have to be thinking about what's going on in the sentence. The teacher will be heard, audiator, he will be heard by the students, a discipulis. And I'm just going to run through this last one real quick. Just wanted to make a point that there could be other stuff going on in the sentence. So for instance, Marcus propetemplum, little prep phrasal, extra information, amicum videt. Marcus sees his friend near the temple. That near the temple is just extra information. Don't let it mess you up. Don't change it. Don't do anything to it. It's just near the temple. When you switch it around, you could say something like the friend is seen, present. The friend is seen by Marcus near the temple. Near the temple doesn't change. That's just bonus information. The friend is seen by Marcus. That's the sentence that we're concerned about. So friend now becomes the subject, amicus. I'll just throw the prope templum back in there, just because. By Marcus, Marco, in the ablative. Yeah, but that's not what the original sentence says, Sloan. It doesn't say the friend of Marcus. It says Marcus sees his friend. So that would be an example of, you want to make sure you stick to the grammar. And then my verb here, excellent, Rowan, would be videtur. Amicus videtur a Marco. The friend is seen by Marcus. And this is a sentence that we would almost exclusively keep in the active. We're just practicing here. But that would be grammatically what you would do. Amicus videtur, the friend is seen a Marco by Marcus, prope templum, near the temple. Well done, Zubair. All right, kiddos, it is 3:35, and I got a prose friend waiting for me. I'll be right there, Anna.
Okay, sounds good.
I love multitasking. We'll have another one tomorrow. Sound good, guys? You're very welcome, Sloan. My pleasure. Wale Giancarlo. Maddie, I'm gonna go into the Discord if you want to do any sight reading or anything. Mihi Plaka, guys. My pleasure. All right, I'm gonna cut it here. Talk to you guys soon.